And then we got in the elevator, and the officer, the male that was with me, was like, "Why did that man look at you? Do you know him?" I was like, "Fuck no, I don't." You know, like, why is this so important right now? I'm fixing to give birth to a baby.
Everybody, I'm Blessed and Free. Welcome back to another episode of DOC TV. So you guys probably recognize who I have back on the channel. We did the first interview, which I'll link in the description of this video. And then I found out after the interview that she actually was pregnant in prison and had a kid. And I think, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and I haven't seen anybody talking about what a woman goes through in jail or prison when they're pregnant. So in today's episode, we're going to talk all about that. If you guys are new and you're tuning in, that's the kind of stuff we talk about on this channel. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn your post notifications on so you'll get a notification every time I drop an episode. All right. So for the people that don't know who you are, why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself again? Tell them your name and where you're from and kind of a little bit about you.
My name is Felicia Perez. I am from Gammon, Oklahoma, but I live in Springfield, Missouri. I was an addict for 15 years. I spent most of my 20s locked up. I went to prison twice. Spent about 3 years there total, and I had a child while I was incarcerated.
All right. So how long were you incarcerated before you found out that you were pregnant, or did you already know when you went in?
Yeah, I knew that I was pregnant before the DOC picked me up.
Okay. So, I mean, how was that? Like, I've never known anybody that, that's had a kid in prison. So like, were you already sentenced to the time? So you knew like there was no way you were getting out?
Yeah. So what had happened is, I was in the state of Oklahoma and I had parole violations, pending, and Oklahoma picked me up on Oklahoma stuff and found out that I had a parole warrant out for my arrest in the state of Missouri. So I actually had to stay in a county jail there in Woodward County until the Missouri extradition van came and picked me up and extradited me back to Missouri.
Was the baby's dad like riding out with you when you were locked up, or?
It was like a one-time thing, and I got pregnant and I've not spoken to him ever again.
Okay. Damn. So even to this day, you don't know where he's at?
Nope. No idea.
All
that
right.
was 7 years ago.
So you're pregnant, you're in jail, you're already sentenced to prison, correct?
Yep.
All right. So women that are watching that have had children know, pregnancy is a big thing. So did they help you when you were in there? Like the healthcare, like how was that?
So I feel like when I was in the county jail, they snuck me in extra food because, I was on one while I was pregnant. So I was like 2.5 months pregnant and I only weighed 88 pounds. So secretly they would give me extra food, because they obviously knew that I needed it. And when I got to prison, I feel like healthcare in prison, they just hire anybody and call them a dentist or they call them a doctor. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like they actually have the credentials to do the stuff that they're doing in there. And so you would go and see an OBGYN. And so I stayed in the maximum security women's prison in Vandalia, Missouri, because it's the only prison in Missouri for women who has OBGYN care. The care there was not like it should be, like you're supposed to have like your glucosamine testing. You're supposed to be, checked every week in the last month of your pregnancy. They didn't do any of that stuff.
How was it for you, mentally and emotionally? Were you in good spirits, or like was the shit eating at you?
So that kind of had, there's another story behind that, because so I have a best friend that I've known most of my life, and she had problems with infertility, and they were trying to have a baby for 10 years, fail after fail after fail. And her and her mom were just praying that some miracle would happen. Well, here I am, this junkie that's pregnant and is on her way to prison. And she actually came to me and she was like, would you consider me adopting this child? Because I didn't know what I was going to do with being in prison and having a baby And you're given two options when you're in prison. Either when you have a baby in prison, you can give them to the Mennonites, and the Mennonites take care of your child until you're released, or you can call somebody, you know, from your family or a friend or whatever, and they can pick your baby up and take care of your baby till you're released. So with her not being able to be a mom, and I feel like one of the greatest blessings that a woman can have is being a mother. Yeah, I do believe that it was kind of like divine intervention. This woman couldn't have a baby. The families were praying for it. Here I was, this junkie who was strung out, pregnant, and on my way to prison. What was I going to do? So she came to me and asked me if I would consider, you know, letting her adopt this baby. And I was like, absolutely, you know, because what greater blessing to do than to do something selfless for somebody else. And giving her the chance to be a mother was something that I could give her. And I really felt like that happened for that reason. I got pregnant with that child to give her that child and bless her with the blessing of being a mother. Yes. So I feel like while I was incarcerated, and after telling her yes, that I would let her adopt my child, I felt like the pregnancy was different because I felt like I was carrying the child for the real mother, which would have been her. And so I didn't really, so knowing that, I didn't have an emotional attachment to this child because I really felt like God did this so that she could have a baby. And I mean, like, yeah, being incarcerated and going through the stress of just prison itself and all the shit that happens on the outside, it was stressful, but I knew that the baby was going to live a better life than what I could give her.
In the last video that we did, there was some people commenting about you talking about drugs in your life in front of your kids. So I feel like this is a perfect time for you to be able to address that. So how do you do that with your children, you know, about like your life and stuff?
So if those people would go back and watch that video, in that video, I actually said that I had to go what I felt like I needed to do in order to get through the things that I needed to do personally to not live with the shame and regret that kept me in my addiction that I went to each of my kids, and I asked them for forgiveness. So with doing so, you have to know what you're forgiving the person for. So when I went to my kids and I said, okay, do you forgive me for being a piece of shit parent all your life, for running you on amok with me while I was high, for doing stuff in front of you that I shouldn't have been doing, like being high, stealing shit, and all that. So if you're going to ask somebody for forgiveness, they have to understand what they're forgiving you for.
It's how you want to do it. You know what I mean? They're your kids and it's your life. So really it's up to you, you know, to be the parent, and you're obviously being a parent or you wouldn't have your kids in the fucking first place. So
with doing that, my kids now, like, they could have looked at that life and been like, you know what, my mom had, you know, was doing what she wanted and had fun and had tons of fucking money. That's what I want to do. You know, I want to grow up and be a drug dealer or be a drug addict too. But with knowing what they know and seeing what they've seen and going through what they've gone through, they now do not want anything to do with that lifestyle.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like, you know, if you tell a kid about our life, you know what I mean? Like, and then you tell them about all the shit that we went through, I think it would prevent more than anything from them, you know, continuing to go down that path of where we went. So absolutely. I don't know. I don't have kids, so, but I will one day, and I'm going to be pretty honest with them about it. All right. So you're pregnant, you're in prison. Do you have like any support from anyone on the outside?
Just like my mom and my dad, you know, the correspondence with my dad from prison to prison. My mom would write me letters and send me pictures of the kids. You know, I would call home every night or every other night just to talk to them and stuff like that. But I never got one visit while I was in prison out of the whole 3 years, you know, so I didn't get to see my kids for an entire, the second time I went to prison for an entire 2 years, and I never got to see my kids once.
Damn. So, I mean, how is it having a kid in there? Like, you're kind of on your own. Like, you know, when a woman has a kid on the street, her man's there, her, you know, mom, aunt, whoever. I mean, that had to feel kind of like, even though, you know, you're giving the kid to your friend and everything, I would think, you know, it has to be like depressing. Like, there's no way around that.
I mean, I can see how you would think that, but I feel like it was very humbling to me to know that, okay, I'm pregnant and I'm, in prison, and that fucking sucks in itself. But this baby, I just felt like I was doing the right thing to do something selfless and give this woman a blessing of being a mother. And yeah, definitely when you're in prison, it's a whole different ball game as far as, being locked up and being pregnant and stuff like that, because you don't have anybody there to talk about it with or anything like that. But the girls that were in my cell and in my pod were very like motherly towards me, and just wanted to do whatever they could to take care of me and make me feel comfortable and stuff like that. And it was really nice of them, you know what I mean? But because not everybody is that way. When I got to the point to where I knew that I was going to have the baby, that was very scary, because I was like, I was thinking about the past experiences that I've had with my kids and being in labor and stuff like that. And it's extremely painful, to give birth to a child. Well, you've got to go through a long process in order to be let out of the prison and driven to the hospital. So as soon as what happened to me, that let me know that I was probably going into labor, I had to go to the rotunda and let them know, look, I'm fixing to have this kid. So they sent me to medical, and they were like, all right, yeah, you're in labor, you're fixing to have this baby. Now we have to do paperwork. Paperwork took like 35, 45 minutes, signing all these pieces of paper, waiting for them to discharge me to get out of there. And I'm in pain, and I'm like, fuck, I wish this would just speed up, But I was blessed with not so bad of a labor, because I wasn't in an extreme amount of pain all the time. And I thank God for that.
That's just like prison, though. Their whole system is hurry up and wait. Everything's a fucking rush, and then you got to stand there for 2 hours. So
yeah,
sounds just like prison.
Yeah. You've got all your paperwork signed and everything, and then they assign 2 officers, a man and a woman, to load you up on a bus. So you're handcuffed and shackled, and you're loaded up in this car, and you're driven to whichever hospital they choose for you to go to. Well, I was chosen to go to St. Mary's Hospital in Jefferson City, Missouri, which is a 2.5 or 2-hour drive from Vandalia, Missouri. So I'm driving in labor in the back of this car, handcuffed and shackled for 2 hours until we get to this hospital. Then they have to, unload you off of the van or the bus that you're in and bring you into the hospital. Then they're creeping around, making sure that nobody knows that you're there, trying to escape you while you're in labor or something. You know what I mean? And then we got in the elevator, and the officer, the male that was with me, was like, why did that man look at you? Do you know him? I was like, fuck no, I don't. Like, why is this so important right now? I'm fixing to give birth to a baby. And it took so long to do everything and get there that I wasn't able to have an epidural to numb the pain of labor. And while you're there giving birth, you are in a bed, you're handcuffed to the bed, and you're shackled with your feet to the bed as well, the entire time you're giving birth. And both guards have to stay in the room and watch you give birth. So here I am, butt ass naked, handcuffed and shackled to the bed, giving birth, screaming in an excruciating amount of pain, and these 2 strangers are just watching me, and I'm like, fuck, like, I felt so embarrassed and so shameful. There's no feeling like it in the world. But the greatest thing that came out of that is that, I was screaming because I was in so much pain. And as soon as the baby came out and you could hear her baby cry, the doctor stopped and said, oh my God, look outside, it's snowing. And everybody stopped, including me. And I looked out my room window, and it was snowing in April. And there was a small voice in my mind that told me that this is the peace in the midst of the storm. And you're only given 24 hours with that child before it's taken away from you, and you have to go back to prison.
So that's gotta suck right there.
Yeah, I think that was probably the hardest part mentally to deal with, is knowing that even though I know that this child is going to a good mom and is going to have the life that she deserves, it's still like, damn, I just gave birth to this child and I can only have it for 24 hours, and then I have to go back to prison. So you have to you have to adapt. You know what I mean? You can't just let your mind do you. You have to do it yourself. You have to be okay with it.
Would you say there's a lot of women in prison that are pregnant?
Not very many. No.
So
Yeah,
you
I
were,
think I was. Yeah, I
you're
was
like
on a yard.
the only one pregnant in the pod and into prison?
Yeah, there was 1,500 women on that yard, and I was the only one that was pregnant.
So I hope you guys are enjoying these kind of episodes. I know I did a poll on my community and a lot of people answered it and they've struggled with addiction. And this is the kind of stuff that happens when you're in addiction. You end up in prison, you end up in some dark places. And, you know, if you guys like this content, drop a comment, let me know. I'll keep dropping it. But if you're new and you're tuning in, man, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn your post notifications on. And with that, it's DOC TV and we're out.